Welcome to the Royal Road School of Carmelite Prayer. Saint Teresa of Avila tells us that the divine path of Carmelite or silent prayer is the royal road to heaven, and that those who travel it will be given a great treasure. A link to the Praying with Teresa of Avila website has been provided below to enable you to easily find today's presentation. Teresian Prayer, an Introduction, the Path. The website provides all the simple tools you need to develop your own practice of Carmelite or silent prayer, along with complete course materials to start your own school of prayer in your parish or in your community. Introduction, Teresian Prayer, the Path to Union with God. Teresa of Avila developed a way of prayer that she will offer in her writings as a fundamental type of prayer usable by either beginners or those more advanced in the way of perfection. We know that interior prayer held to the secret to Holy Mother's success, even to her whole life. It is thanks to it that she met the living God, and thanks to her practice that she achieved perfect union with God. It is hard, though, to formulate a complete or precise idea of recollected prayer based on Teresa's descriptions alone. The difficulty, admittedly, is in part due to the subject itself. It's about a complex spiritual reality on par with faith and experience, differing according to the individual, situated at the limit between the natural and the supernatural, between ordinary meditation and infused contemplation. Teresa realized this difficulty. May what has been said be well understood. Even though it seems obscure, it will be understood by anyone who desires to practice it. It took Teresa herself time to identify the original characteristics of her manner of prayer compared to discursive prayer, of which she will most often speak in a negative aspect, dismissing it. I am not asking you to reason, deliberate, etc., she often repeated. Moreover, for quite some time she herself wouldn't be able to explain to others what she was living. She had to refer to the pages in Bernardino de Loredo's book, The Ascent of Mount Zion, in order to explain to Francisco de Salcedo and to Gaspar Daza the different states of her soul. Later on, she will consider it a special grace to receive from the Lord to have the capacity to describe her own interior movements. In an instant, God gave me, in a moment, a completely clear understanding, so that I knew how to explain His favor. For it is one grace to receive the Lord's favor, another to understand which favor and grace it is, and a third to know how to describe and explain it. When Teresa wrote her autobiography and her other books, a long time had passed since she had advanced beyond this first form of prayer, the prayer of recollection. She still, however, found it difficult to explain it clearly and concisely. She would correct herself on several occasions in the autobiography, The Way of Perfection, and then The Interior Castle. We also know that her difficulty came from the extreme variability of her spirit. She hardly began to talk about one subject before she digressed to another. She wasn't able to discipline herself to logically develop an idea, but she did have the remarkable talent of being able to return to her original idea. She knew her shortcoming and asked to be forgiven for it, admitting that she didn't know how to explain herself without using a lot of words. With her usual grace, she would acknowledge that she perhaps had said a lot of superfluous and even foolish things in order to say something that is right. She had the feeling of not having said all that she wanted to say, or that she had said it incorrectly. So, out of desperation, she would refer her readers to their own future experience of it. What I want to explain to you is very difficult to understand without experience. From time to time, while repeating herself or whatever it was worth, she would include a detail that would clarify the entire question. That is why it is up to the reader to assemble the pieces of the puzzle in an attempt to reconstruct the entire picture. To all of this, a final difficulty must be added: the imprecise vocabulary employed by Teresa. She never received philosophical or theological training, and she would often complain about it. So, on the one hand, she would criticize meditation, implying a methodical approach, and on the other, however, would recommend it, but another form of it, as we shall see. She used the term entendimento, or intelligence, with 4 different meanings without making the reader aware. For a long time, she confused intelligence with imagination. She will talk about recollection sometimes in an ordinary sense and sometimes in an infused sense. She was aware of this confusion for her reader, though it didn't exist in her mind. It's possible that in dealing with the interior matters, I might contradict something of what I said elsewhere. Rather than conclude contradiction, perhaps trying to point out ambiguities in an attempt to discover, in spite of imperfect or defective expressions, the truth that she was striving to communicate, because there was surely coherence in her thought and experience. To fully develop her method, she needed a lot of time. We will follow the steps of her journey. She will begin by trying her hand at discursive prayer. Then she will follow Osuna's method until finally she will find her own path after many mistakes and uncertainties. Amen.